Hey you guys, welcome back to my Purest Alchemy channel. My name is Brianna if you don't know me, and this is my Purest Alchemy channel where we talk about case studies, experiences, all things under the sun alike, what comes to my mind. So it's definitely been a while since I have been on YouTube. That was purposeful. It definitely took some time to myself. I just recently lost a childhood friend of mine. May he have a peaceful transition. His name was Justice, and he was 27 years old. And that is in line with this video that I'm making today. The ages of 25 through 33, which is the time of us feeling the effects of Saturn. So Saturn is the planet of restriction, limitations. It's the planet of rewards, delays. Saturn is a planet in our ecosystem or in our atmosphere that relates to the more responsible side of life, or the more taboo and dark things of life that encompass this reality that we're living in. I've been studying astrology for about 10 years now. I started when I was about 17 years old. And it's definitely assisted me with understanding different parts of myself, or how certain energies are playing out in our reality. And I'm not an expert. Astrology is one of those things that once you start learning, you just keep learning and learning and learning, because it's so layered. It's a little bit complex. It dives deep into like what the planets mean. Earth is orbiting these planets, and because there's a gravitational pull, literally causes for energies to be felt from these planets. So Saturn is one of those planets that represent tests that you may have to go through in life. And Saturn basically gives you an audit of your life. This happens every 29 years of your life, about 29 years of your life. Like the first Saturn return you're going to go through is going to be at around 25 to 30 years old. So usually you're in the thick of it by like 27, 28, 29. Then you'll experience another Saturn return around your 50s. So you basically get these life audits when it comes down to if you're living in alignment with what your soul's mission is, right? So around this time, you may experience a lot of challenges when it comes down to your relationships. It could be your mental health, it could be your physical health, it could be just responsibilities of becoming a parent, or responsibilities of living on your own, responsibilities of when it comes down to what your next phase of life is going to be. And I'm 27 now, but from what I've experienced so far is I started feeling the effects of Saturn in around like 25 years old, when I started maturing a lot more, and it started helping me realize wanting to shift my life. What I've seen with the planet of Saturn is that it will have a pressurized effect on the individual, where there are certain things in life that the individual cannot ignore anymore, right? So I've witnessed this when it comes down to a lot of my friends, even myself going through a Saturn return. I'm not like in the thick of it, but I'm definitely feeling the effects of it. But also I've watched older people in my life. I've asked them questions about like what was going on in your life at 27 years old, and then I'm getting answers such as, oh well, I had my first kid, or I was diagnosed with some type of condition. And sometimes Saturn will slow you down on purpose because it needs you to reevaluate where you're going. It basically asks you to face all of the things that make you feel fear, make you feel sadness or rejection, or some things are karmic in a way where you may have to face these things so you can grow as an individual, so your soul can grow. I've talked to people in the past and they have told me like, oh, well, when it comes down to around that age, it's like I knew that I couldn't do the same things anymore. I knew that I was being asked to either step up to the plate. I knew that I was being asked to grow up in a way, and it was difficult for me. Like, one of the people that I know, becoming a parent at 27 years old, it caused them to, like, it wasn't easy, like in the marriage that they had. So it caused them to not fully be present in their children's life. And that now they're going through another Saturn return. And at this point, it's like now they have no relationship with their kid relatively, right? So life will play out in these ways where, like, what you go through when you're younger, like, you can always like make up for it in certain ways, but when you go through certain things around these ages, it's because it's actually like your reality cementing. Because it's like in our 20s, like we can always adapt, we can always change as human beings, but there are certain habits and there are certain patterns of our lives around these ages that either we can steep deeper into them, or we can have the awareness to actually do something about what doesn't feel good for us in our body. Never mind what your family thinks, never mind what your friends think, never mind what your partner thinks, never mind what society thinks. If you are living in alignment, it will feel better for you. Like there are times where that also may come with friction from your immediate environment. Really experiencing a review of our life and our whole life up until these points in times, and it's asking us like, what is yours and what isn't? What are you working towards and what are you not working towards, right? How are you showing up in your life, and is what you went through as a kid affecting you today? And if so, how are you getting yourself the help that you need from that? How are you taking care of yourself, right? For example, because what I know I mentioned in the past, the person that was going through the Saturn return and they were diagnosed with an illness, and I have reason to believe from like watching this person in life and their relationships, this definitely comes from not being supported in their life, but also not knowing how to help themselves when it comes down to speaking their truth or understanding or naming or being able to name what was going on for them. So it became an issue, like certain issues that you kind of just swallow and you kind of just accept because of the simple fact that you have no real support, right? So I've seen it play out in these ways where Saturn is definitely gonna like hit you like with some truth, some hard truths about life, about slowing down and asking yourself what is really required of you right now, what is really needed of you right now. Are you being authentic? Are you telling the truth? Are you living according to your values and your standards? And if you're not, then it's time for you to start figuring that out, because when 30 comes, this is a time where you're gonna be stepping into your more authentic and full self, right? You're still finding yourself because you're still basically dusting off your 20s, which came from your teenage years, which came from your childhood years, and everything is about evolving. But Saturn makes it so that you evolve, like come hell or high water. And the more you resist what is needed, I've seen it work out in a way where it's much harder for people. Like I've seen, if you don't take the time out to control your emotional reactions, I've seen people go to prison around this time, go to jail, right? Like there's so many things that encompass a person going through a Saturn return, them either hitting rock bottom or getting an illness, or like taking the time out to like go through really big wins. Like I remember reading up on Keke Palmer, and Keke Palmer, she was really materialistically successful, right, in her career. She was very much so like everywhere advancing, and then she got into an abusive relationship with a man who is the father of her kid, and that sometimes that Saturn, like in a way where it's like, yeah, you can have all of this materialistically, but are there patterns that you need to break when it comes down to how you relate to human beings? And are you paying attention to the red flags? Are you allowing yourself to tell the truth about a person? Times where, yeah, you may be successful on the outside and things may look great, but when it comes down to your inner self, You know, you're going to be met with tests. You're going to be met with questions and epiphanies and different forms of awareness that ask you if you're moving according to your alignment, right? To what you think life is about, or what you think your life is going to be about. Like if you are the type of person that says, yeah, like I want 2 kids and I want a family and I want a white picket fence. But if you have that idea in your mind and you're not being mindful of the type of person that you want that with, you can say that you want that, right? But if you want 2 kids, if you're not doing it in an alternative way, then how are you showing up in your relationships? This song called Fear by Kendrick Lamar, and in that song, he's 27 and he's talking about, the song starts off with him in his mother's voice and or in his father's voice, and he's basically like, I beat your ass, keep talking back. I beat your ass if you come into this house crying, running from Poo and Prentice. Go back outside, I beat your ass. Like, that's the inner voice that he's experiencing at this moment in 27 years old, right? And that causes him to experience an insurmountable amount of fear, because it causes him to feel like, yeah, I'm here. I've arrived at like all of my career success. Why do I still feel like a scared little boy? Why do I feel like somebody's out to get me? Why do I feel so much fear if I'm successful? And that's when he moved on from that album, and he made Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, right? And Mr. Morale, he goes into like all of his therapeutic moments, like he starts breaking all of the patterns up to get to a better understanding of himself. And I feel like that is a very significant way of describing the Saturn return. And you get to either double down or you get to take time to yourself, and you really can't be guilty about the time that you take to yourself, due to the fact that we're all just figuring it out. Like, we're not experts at this life stuff. Like, there's so many different avenues that a person can take. There's so many different experiences that we all have been through, that if you take time to yourself, there's no judgment with that. And sometimes I wish that my friend Justice would have understood that experiences that are very scary when it comes down to the mind, right? Like, the mind can become a very dark place when it comes down to Saturn, because you're experiencing a lot of the feelings of heaviness, of depression. Things are very sobering, like very sobering. My friend Justice, I just really wish he would have known that there is hope, like there is there's a light outside of the tunnel, but you have to be extremely patient with yourself. Like, you have to be extremely compassionate towards yourself. You have to be extremely, extremely cognizant that this too shall pass. And it may not always pass like immediately, right? There's always going to be situations in life that are tough, that you have to use mental fortitude and spiritual fortitude to get through. But I really wish that he would have known that, bad times don't last forever, and that we are here to support him no matter what. Astrology should be a little bit more understood. It should be taught in school. I feel like it would allow for a lot of people to understand that there are certain phases in their life where the pressure is going to be on, but you don't have to give up on yourself. In fact, like, this would be more of a time to connect with people that love you, connect with yourself on a deeper level. Don't be afraid of the memories that come through. Feel them all the way through. Don't be ashamed of who you are in any way. Love yourself and love others, even if it feels very difficult right now, and always get yourself the help that you need. I wanted to talk about Saturn today because I know that I'm 27, and I know that a lot of my peers are around the same age as me. And even if there are older people that are watching this right now that are, let's say, like in their 40s, 50s, these are times where you're gonna be tested spiritually, for sure. And you're gonna be shedding and dissolving a lot of old things. Don't judge yourself for any of the emotions that are coming up, because the emotions are information. Like, it's giving you a opportunity to understand how you feel without it becoming something that controls your life. You know, after experiencing my friend's death, I started realizing that life is finite, and there are things that I feel like I have to share. And there are times where, you know, I may experience the fear of Saturn, you know, like, but working through that fear, I feel, is very, very important, because fear can also be like in your mind and in your nervous system. And if there is no fear abound, right, you're looking around and you can name 5 things that you see, touch, taste, or smell, then you're safe. And it's imperative that you work through those limiting beliefs that you have about not being loved, not being cared for, not being successful, not being enough, right? It's not true. It's just, we all have to go through things in life. And if you're starting from, let's say, a point where, you know, you're just trying to figure it out, you don't always have the right support system, it's never too late to understand certain things. It's never too late to learn certain things. And it's never too late to do better in life. Like, as long as you have breath, then you have life. And that is enough to act on whatever is in your heart. And I just felt like it was very important for me to get back up here and start expressing the things that I've learned over the last 10 years, especially from my observations. Like, there have been so many of my friends that are going through Saturn return woes and changes, and it's just fascinating to me, truly, how there are so many different breakdowns that people will experience, and we all have each other through it, you know. Like, not like, I don't find it fascinating that it's painful. I just find it fascinating how Saturn asks and requires you to change. I've just been seeing it over and over and over again. And it's not going to stop. Like, it's not going to stop until you're 30 something years old, you know. Like, that's why I feel like it's important for me to talk about it, because there are times where I think people can get lost in translation when it comes down to these years, and they feel like, oh, like, it's not, like, I'm not gonna do anything with my life, or whatever the case may be. It's like, no, your life is really just getting started, love. Like you really about to start living it tight. So I'm definitely gonna come back and start talking more about the planets, astrology, and what I've learned about different types of people, places, things that represent astrology, but also, like, that has helped me on my journey in understanding how the planets affect us, and how your birth chart helps you better understand yourself, which helps you maneuver through life in a more efficient way. You know, I mean, life is not always going to be simple, and I don't think that that's the point of life, but I think we can make it a little bit more simple if we educate ourselves and keep an open mind on different things. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and Purest Alchemy out. Love you.